welcome back. Today we are going to be doing a super low effort wrap up. And I know what you're thinking, Lindsay, all your videos lately have been super low effort. Yeah, I'm pretty low effort right now. I'm very low energy. It's that time of the year where literally all I want to do is eat soup and play Animal Crossing. I have just been in like the weirdest funk lately with reading. If you've seen my weekly reads videos that I've been doing, you'll know that my reading has been absolute shit for this entire month. I just don't want to really be doing anything. And the absolute last thing I want to do is put makeup on and sit and make it look like I've got my life together when I absolutely do not. So we're going low effort. No makeup, hair in a bun because I haven't washed it in 2 days, and just tired. I'm tired. That's basically the gist. So today I'm going to be doing my October wrap up. Despite it being a completely shit reading month, I did manage to finish 5 things. I think 5. 4 of those things were things that I finished in the last week of the month. So like I said earlier, if you watched my weekly reads that I was doing, you'll know that I was DNFing a ton of books in October, just left and right DNFs. I think I DNF'd 4 or 5 books total, and I only read 5 books, and most of those were in the last week of the month. So yeah, not the best reading month. So I'm just gonna go in order that I read them and tell you about all the books that I read. Most of these I didn't talk about in a weekly reads, like 4 of them I didn't talk about in a weekly reads because I didn't post a weekly reads for this last week. So the first one was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which I did talk about in my weekly reads. This is the first book in the Alex Stern or Ninth House series. It's the first of what I think is going to be a 5 or 6 book series, and it follows a girl named Alex, or Galaxy Stern, and she is given the opportunity to go to Yale to basically monitor the secret societies of Yale. There are 8 societies at Yale that all have magic, or like they deal with magic in some way. Alex is a part of the Ninth House, which is kind of like just the overseer of all of them, like kind of like the person who makes sure, the people that make sure that the other societies don't get out of hand with their magic. At the beginning of the book, you find out that Alex's mentor has gone missing, and she is trying to figure out what happened to him. And also a murder happens on the Yale campus, and she's trying to figure out if it is connected in some way to the secret societies. I really liked this. I felt like it had really good atmosphere. I really liked the characters. I was super interested, like super invested in the mystery and just the story in general. I really liked the fact that it followed both of the main characters, well, Alex mostly, and then we also get some flashback scenes when she is first meeting her mentor Darlington. We get some chapters from his point of view as well when he's first introduced to Alex, and I enjoyed him. I'm super invested in where the series is going to go next. I'm really sad that we don't have a release date or even like a title for the second book, and especially if this is going to be a longer series, I can feel that it's going to be playing the long game, because while a lot happens, not a lot happens at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, it really packs in a lot towards the end, but it's pretty slow moving for the rest of it. And I will say that that was probably my biggest issue, was the pacing. I just felt like the pace could have moved a little bit quicker to be like a perfect 5-star read for me. This was on my 2021 TBR, my 5-star predictions for 2021, and it wasn't a 5-star read, but I did really enjoy it. I will be continuing on with the series. I understand why it's so hyped, but I also understand why a lot of people don't like this book, because it's not going to be for everyone. It's got some serious trigger warnings for sexual assault, drug use, death. I mean, I just would be very careful. Like, I would do some research going into this, because it is definitely not going to be a book that everyone is going to jive with. Would highly recommend, if it sounds like your thing, just go into it knowing that it's very different from Leigh Bardugo's other books. It's very different from Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows. It's its own story, completely separate. The next book I read was When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Nevo. This is the second book in the Singing Hills cycle. I read the first book, The Empress of Salt and Fortune, earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it, and for some reason I just put off continuing on, but now I have continued on, and my cat is licking the camera. Milo. This series follows a cleric named Chi, whose only job is to travel around this land and collect stories of all the people that they meet. And this book in particular follows Chi as they are getting ready to travel up the mountain to visit this village, and they are being escorted or accompanied by a girl from a village at the bottom of the mountain. And one night on their travels, they are kind of overtaken by tigers, and Chi and these tigers kind of go back and forth telling a tiger folklore story, and I thought it was really good. I really like this series. I think it's really interesting. It has this like folklore-y type of feel to it, and I guess it's because that's a major part of the story is characters telling the main character their stories, but I just really enjoyed the dynamic that this story created. And I'm also so excited to get to read more in this series. I'm really excited that we're going to get to follow Chi on more of their adventures. A continuation has recently been announced. I believe it's set for at least 2 or 3 more books, which I'm really excited about because I would honestly read probably like 20 more books following Chi. This is kind of like the Wayward Children series for me, in that I could just keep reading them because it's a lot of fun. And I like getting kind of all these different perspectives. I think that the author maybe pulls from mythology from different cultures to tell the stories, and I think it's super interesting how all of that is kind of incorporated into this world. I would highly recommend the Singing Hills cycle, only because, well, one, because it's great, but also because they're super short reads. Like, each of them are about 150 pages. If you get the audiobooks, I think the audiobooks are less than 3 hours long. So just great quick reads, and they're so interesting. They're just really well written and just exciting. So I would definitely recommend if you haven't checked the series out. Next up, I read one of my probably most unexpected reads probably this whole year, and that is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. I read Samantha Downing's debut novel, My Lovely Wife, and I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't 100% sold on the plot of her second book. He Started It, so I never actually picked that one up. But when this book came out and it was being pitched as kind of this dark academia meets you kind of story, then I decided I would give it a go. I listened to the audiobook and I really enjoyed it. It's one of those kind of like out of the box mysteries that you really have to suspend your disbelief pretty far to buy into the story. But I think that the beauty of this book was that Samantha Downing really like leaned into some of the cheesiness that comes along with mystery thriller tropes. I think that she is very aware of those like very common tropes that you find in pretty much, not every mystery thriller, but you find a lot in mystery thrillers, and she kind of just leans into that, and I think it's really clever. This is not like a groundbreaking thriller by any means, but I think that she does mysteries in such an interesting way. I felt the same way about My Lovely Wife, just like plot twist after plot twist in that book. And while this one didn't have quite as many plot twists, you're pretty aware of the mystery up front. This one just had a lot of like extra factors thrown in that finding out how everything was tied together was what made this book really exciting. I loved it. Like, honestly, it was just so much fun. After like a pretty crappy reading month, it was nice to kind of get towards the end and read something that I just had a blast reading. And if you haven't checked out Samantha Downing, I would highly recommend it. I might go back and read He Started It, or I might just like keep reading whatever she puts out in the future. But honestly, like, her books are probably great for beginner thriller readers because she knows what she's doing, and I just enjoyed it a lot. Like, I understand the hype for this one, and I fully support it. The next book I read was actually a graphic novel, and that was When I Arrived at the Castle by Emily Carroll. I read this on Halloween, or like the day before Halloween. I kind of read it like after midnight, so it's technically Halloween, but it was still really the 30th, you know? This is a graphic novel all about this girl who is a cat, and she goes to this castle. Plenty of people have gone to the castle in the past and tried to slay the witch or vampire that lives there, and this cat gets there, and we kind of get to like hear the vampire's story. The art in it is stunning. Like, let me find a really good picture to show you. The art is fantastic, but it's very, what's the word? There's like this underlying tone of sexuality that I wasn't quite expecting. And by sexuality, I mean, it's just like kind of erotic in a really weird way. And I just wasn't expecting it. Not like explicit, it's not anything like that. It's just, there's little hints and moments. It's subtle, but the innuendo is there. I read this because, well, I wanted something kind of creepy for Halloween, so I got it from the library. But also, I read Emily Carroll's previous short story graphic novel collection, Through the Woods, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to read something else that she put out, and this was good. I mean, it wasn't anything super groundbreaking. The art is great. I probably won't remember it a few months from now, but it was a nice little Halloween read, and if you haven't checked it out, I would recommend it. And finally, the last book that I finished in the month of October was As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the third and final book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I read the first book last year and then the second book earlier this year, and if you are looking for a really fun YA mystery series, then I would definitely recommend checking this series out. The first book is about a girl named Pip who is working on a senior project, and she has decided to focus on this murder that happened in her town a few years before. The police believe that they know who the killer was, and they believe they know what happened, but Pip isn't so sure, and so she and a couple of friends team up to maybe actually solve this crime. And then of course some other stuff starts to happen along the way, and there's this like mixed media element because she is recording all of the conversations and stuff that she's having for her project, and then it turns into a podcast, and the podcast element is pretty heavy in the second and third books. I won't go too much into the plot of the third book because obviously it's the third book in a trilogy, but I will say that it picks up basically where the second book leaves off. Pip is still kind of dealing with some stuff that happened at the end of the second book. She's got some major PTSD and she's working through a lot of trauma that she's feeling, and this book is very different from the first two. Very different tone, very different feel. Pip is a completely different character in my opinion, and understandably so because she has gone through some major trauma in the first couple of books. But this one I feel like maybe went in a direction that I wasn't 100% okay with. The first two books were believable in that she is trying to solve these crimes, or she's trying to like help the people in her town. And this one, it just was very different. You really have to suspend your disbelief like very far to even buy into this story a little bit. I didn't love that. I didn't love that it went so far out of the realm of like actual possibility that I couldn't totally enjoy it. Also because it just felt like a different story. It felt like a different set of characters. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I didn't love it as much as I liked the first two books, and so it wasn't the perfect ending to this trilogy. I kind of wish it had done something a little different, but I also do kind of understand why the author made the choices that she made. I don't know that I fully like come to terms with how I feel about this book. So yeah, just not the most ideal ending to the trilogy that I was hoping for. So I figured since my wrap-up portion was going to be so short this month because I didn't read that much and I didn't have like a ton of like groundbreaking things to say, that I would do a really quick like currently reading and maybe a small November TBR. So I have a couple books that I for sure want to finish and get to in November. The first is the book that I'm currently reading, and I talked about this in my last weekly reads, I believe, and that is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. I am almost halfway through this. I'm just reading it slowly because I haven't really been in a physical reading mood lately. I am getting more into it, and so I think I'll be able to finish this in the next couple days. I'm really enjoying it. It's pretty slow moving. I thought it would be a little bit more quick, like the pace would be a little bit quicker, but it is a little bit slower. I'm excited to see kind of how it concludes. I have some theories, but I'm trying not to theorize too much because I think it takes away from the enjoyment a little bit. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm gonna keep going with this and hopefully finish it in the next couple days. The other book that I'm currently reading, and I'm honestly kind of trying to decide if I'm gonna DNF this book or not, is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I am like, I don't know, here in the book. I don't know exactly where I'm at. About 2/3 of the way, or 1/3 of the way in, and I'm just not that interested in the story, to be honest. Basically, I picked this book up because it was getting such rave reviews and I heard like great things about it, and I'm just a little bit bored, to be honest. Like, I don't give a shit about the main characters. It's very like war focused, and I'm kind of starting to realize that I'm not super into war fantasy. It's been sitting on my currently reading shelf for like 2 weeks at this point, and I probably haven't touched it in a week, maybe a week and a half. So yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I might DNF it, I might keep going, I might just put it on pause. I haven't decided. And then November is nonfiction November, and I have done a really bad job of reading nonfiction this year. I know there are some challenges associated with nonfiction November, but I'm not worried about that. I just want to actually read some nonfiction. So I've got 3 books here that I'm gonna try to prioritize. The first is another library book, and that is She Kills Me by Jennifer Wright. Jennifer Wright wrote one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time, Get Well Soon. It's all about like plagues, like deadliest plagues throughout like the world's history. And this is about the true stories of history's deadliest women. It's short and it's got a bunch of stories in here, and they're all just like a page or 2 long. So it's got a ton of different women in here, and we get just like a little snippet of their story. And I think it's just gonna be super fun to read. Super fun. It's about serial killers, but I just think it's going to be like an interesting read. I think Jennifer Wright does a really good job of balancing education and entertainment. She can give you a lot of new information that you maybe didn't know, but also make you laugh at the same time. And it's what I really appreciate about all of the books that I've read by her. So I'm excited to read her newest release. And then I figured I'm still kind of like in like a spooky season type of mood, I guess. So the other one, another one I've got here is American Sherlock, Murder, Forensics, and the Birth of American CSI by Kate Winkler Dawson. I am a huge CSI fan. I've watched all the show, obviously, and I understand that the show CSI is not the same as like actual CSI, but I am really interested to see how the CSI like idea kind of formed, and this is like a true crime type of story. I don't know if it's going to focus on one particular case or a couple of cases, but I'm very interested in reading it. I just am so excited. And then lastly, the last little TBR book I've got here is The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee. This is a biography of cancer. I bought this in Austin earlier this year when my friends and I went on a little weekend trip for my birthday, and I've been a little intimidated by it. I have no idea why, because it's, you know, not like 800 pages or something, 470 pages, and then this is just all like index or whatever. But it's still kind of intimidating because it's long and it's got like the text is all really close together, and it's about cancer. So it's going to be a hard read, but I've heard amazing things about it, and I'm excited to finally get to it. That's my October wrap up. That's my November TBR, also a currently reading thrown in there. And this has been a fun little low-key video. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video and what you thought about them. Do you have similar or different opinions to me in regards to the books that I read in October? And which of the books that I said I might read in November would you like to see me review, or which of them have you read that you think I would also really enjoy? I'd love to know that down in the comments. Also, let me know some books that you read in October and some books you're excited to read in November. I'd really love to know that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!